What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to the program. Tonight we are talking running back sleepers, one of our favorite categories in all of fantasy football analysis. We're talking about those guys that may not be drafted early, but they might end up winning your league after the fact. These are bench stashes. These are handcuffs. These are maybe not number ones on their team, but number ones in our heart. Jeff and Sky with you right now on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. What up, everybody? Welcome back to the program. I'm your host, Sky Guasco, on another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. Joined by my man Jefferson tonight. That is at Jefferson__21. You can find me, Sky Guasco, on X as well. Tonight we got a fun one for you. We're talking running back sleepers. 'Tis the season for those kind of guys that you want to cherry pick off of your draft board. These are running backs that are outside of our top 20 based on the Razzball ADP and ECR you can find at football.razzball.com. You can also find all of our articles and all of our great writers at football.razzball.com. And of course, all of our episodes every night right here on the Razzball Fantasy YouTube channel. Make sure to hit the bell, leave a comment, and give us a like there. Stay tuned all offseason and up until Sunday kickoff in September. And of course, we have our Sunday start sit show, which is a quad box and a lot of fun. You want to be here every single Sunday morning prior to kickoff. Those of you that like to catch us after the fact or on the go, much like I do, make sure to catch the Razzball podcast anywhere you listen to your audio as well. Jeff, good evening, my man. We got a fun one tonight. This is going to kick off the series of our sleepers, our breakouts, our busts, my guys must have, do not draft, all that fun stuff through the rest of the draft season here heading into August, man. We got less than 6 weeks until football. Very excited for that. Who is one player we're not going to talk about tonight, but when I do rankings picks and I do busts and breakouts and all this shit, I end up with like 15 guys I want to talk about, right? A lot of guys start hitting these categories when you get later and later and later in rankings. But for sake of the show and really to narrow it down on guys we're extra excited about, we have 3 apiece tonight. But who's maybe like a 4th, 5th fringe guy in your sleeper category for the running back position in PPR? We're not going to talk about him tonight, but who's somebody you're keeping your eye on here for the rest of training camp and you'll probably end up having in deeper drafts this season?
Yeah, one man comes straight to mind. It's Tajay Spears out of Tennessee. He is, they're saying it's a committee. It's a RB1A and a RB1B. So no one really knows what that looks like. So that's definitely a guy I'm watching all through training camp.
I love it. I want to give a shout out to some of the OGs here, some of the old reliables coming off of major injuries, and 2 guys pop off the page, of course, Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins. We need to monitor both those guys, obviously, as they come into the offseason here, making sure that they're healthy enough to start and healthy enough to be on your actual roster. But these are guys, no question about it, Jeff, when I start having 3 or 4 stud running backs that I'm willing to pop in any given week, I start looking at RB5 and 6 on my deep rosters here. Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins are definitely going to take up a space because we know what they're capable of doing. Maybe not in full PPR leagues, but half in standard leagues, absolutely. Also, maybe not in Dynasty, but certainly in redraft. So don't forget about Nick Chubb and J.K. Dobbins, along with Tajay Spears, the new hotness. Of course, we love that before Tony Pollard ended up there in Tennessee as well. But Tony Pollard last year was fine in between the 20s, but couldn't get in the end zone. Is that something Tajay Spears can capitalize on? I like that name a lot. Well, let's kick it off here, man. We got 6 names for everybody tonight. Again, everyone's more than welcome to jump into the chat bar if you'd like and join us. Let us know who your sleepers are for the running back position heading into 2024. Jeff, I'll let you kick it off, man. Who do you have first for your running back sleeper?
First one on my list. This is a guy I'm really excited about. Kind of an OG player on a new home, in Zack Moss in Cincinnati. He's going to replace Joe Mixon. Few things that really stand out about his transition there is that when he started 8 games last year in Cincy, he finished in the top 10 4 times and twice in the top 5 with the Colts offense. So I like to say the Bengals are better than the Colts. So for him to put up those kind of numbers is something I like to see. Also, Mixon last year, he's been top 13 in 4 of his healthy seasons in Cincinnati. So right now Moss is RB 28. and he's being drafted in roughly in the 90s, depending what you're looking on. So he's going to a situation where it's been productive and there's a history of it. Now he's going to a team that also does things in his favor. Last season, he had the fourth most explosive runs out of the shotgun formation. And last year, Cincinnati ran out of the shotgun 70% of the time. So I just see him translating very well. I know people are excited about Chase Brown. But to me, he's a third down back. Zack Moss is your first down and second down running back, run between the tackles. So don't be scared away of Zack Moss because of Chase Brown. I think you should definitely go after Zack Moss.
I like it. Just got to stay healthy. We like them a lot coming out of Utah. I say this every time we talk about Zack Moss. I'm a Pac-12 guy with the Ducks. I watch more Pac-12 than anything else. Kid was awesome coming out of school, and he got hurt immediately and then came back and got hurt again, came back and got hurt again. Don't forget, he was Jonathan Taylor last year before Jonathan Taylor came back, like for real. Over 20 PPR fantasy points in multiple weeks before Jonathan Taylor came back. So an opportunity in a high-flying offense in Cincinnati. I know we've been kind of burned by the name, but you got to make sure that you remember the opportunity and what the potential can be. And again, we're talking sleepers. This is not your RB2 on your team necessarily, but as a 3-4 bench guy that could maybe blow up on your team, I like that a lot. Good call on Zack Moss. He is going as the RB28 right now ranked on the Razzball team. All right, I'm going to get into mine here. I'm going to go with Jonathan Brooks. That's a player that came in, first running back drafted, came in the second round, goes to the Panthers. Nobody likes the Panthers situation. I totally get it. He's coming off of a brutal injury, tore his ACL. Don't love that either. But as the top running back getting drafted, that holds a lot of weight for me, especially because the kid is injured. Don't forget about this, folks. NFL executives miss all the time on draft picks. They also hit all the time, sometimes on accident, Brock Purdy, but their evaluations are what they are. These guys are professionals in what they do as well. And what Jonathan Brooks was able to do at Texas last year before the injury was phenomenal. He leapfrogs all these other running backs to be the top guy, even with the injury. So when he comes back healthy, I think he's going to hit the ground running. And when he does that, I think he will be the best rookie running back from that point on, whether it's week 1, week 4, week 8, week 12, whatever. Whenever he gets the full slate, I think he's going to knock off Chuba Hubbard and Miles Sanders immediately. Those guys are both contracted through this year, but I don't think either one of them return next year. Certainly not Miles Sanders, maybe Chuba Hubbard for depth, but I do like Jonathan Brooks. Also, it is the new hotness in fantasy football where the rookies come out guns a-blazing right away. So assuming he can stay healthy, Jonathan Brooks has a great opportunity. Bad offense, yes, but Bryce Young, I think, comes back. They have a couple more weapons there. Deontay Johnson's going to help them move the chains a little bit. They've upgraded their offensive line tremendously this year, which is going to help. Their defense is back healthy. I think the Panthers are going to be better, maybe not wins and losses wise, but offensively. Dave Canales comes over from Tampa. We saw what he was able to do with the running backs, especially out of the pass game for a number of years there with Rashad White. So I like him a lot. Last year, he was the second running back only to Bucky Irving, go Ducks, in the draft class in broken tackles on per rush attempt. He was the number 4 graded PFF, Pro Football Focus running back in this draft class. I love the opportunity. I don't love the offense, but we see rookie running backs landing in bad opportunities that get a ton of work. They're still low end to mid RB2s with RB1 opportunity because of the opportunity. So Jonathan Brooks is somebody I'm trying not to forget about, and also somebody I'm monitoring with that health. I think he'll be just fine. Maybe starts on the PUP list, whatever. But week 4, 5, 6, I'm going to keep him on my stash, throw him on your IR to start the season, pick up somebody else. In that second month of the season, I think Jonathan Brooks is going to be great, an opportunity to have on your roster. Any thoughts about Jonathan Brooks? I know we don't talk about Longhorns much with you, Jeff, but anything
No, I definitely like this pick. He was one of my breakouts, actually, honorable mention in my article last week. I love the opportunity, as you mentioned. He's the most explosive back on that team. And, just because you're on a bad team doesn't mean you can't put up fantasy points if you get the touches. So I kind of foresee him, if he can handle the workload after week 4, because he's clear to return to practice, actually. So I don't know if he's with pads yet or not, but he's back at least practicing. So if he can be starting back by week 4, week 5, I think he'll definitely pay dividends.
Awesome. I love it. Jonathan Brooks is the 29th running back right behind Zack Moss, according to our Razzball team. All right, Jeff, who you got up second?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep with the trend of players coming off injury. This guy, Javonte Williams, out of Denver, I do like a lot. News today, he lost 11 pounds. Sean Payton made some interesting comments to the media today that has me kind of thinking he might be the RB1 in Denver. I think we maybe have been wrong about him. He was watching his college film prior to getting drafted and kind of said, "This is the weight you need to get at." So and then there's rumors of Samaje Perine being cut as well. So I kind of like the bounce back for Javonte Williams. He's only 24, and this will now be his second season after the bad ACL, LCL injury tear in 22. And historically, look at some numbers. Running backs are more efficient in the second year after an injury like this. So last year, I think he averaged like 4 yards a carry. Wasn't very good. He wasn't very efficient. But I think this year he'll be better. He still got 200 carries last year after coming off that injury, so he's going to get the workload. Also seeing through training camp so far, he's taking a lot of the first team reps already. So I'm a little optimistic on this Broncos offense with your Ducks boys, Troy Franklin and Bo Nix. But one thing that really stood out to me is that if Samaje Perine is actually cut, that's going to vacate 50 catches and a total of 100 touches to this backfield. So say he gets 25 out of that would put him in the top 5 of running backs in receptions. He had 48 himself. He'd be in the 60s. So if they cut him, I just think he's going to get a big workload that no one's foreseeing. And he's going ADP 98 as RB30. What are your thoughts on him?
Man, love it. Javonte Williams, again, great rookie season coming in. 264 total opportunities last year, Jeff, which is great. His efficiency was dreadful. He was like 31st among running backs in efficiency. We hate that. However, the fact that they kept feeding him on a bad offense, they could have shut him down. The Broncos were fake in the hunt for the last month and a half or whatever. They kept and then they benched Russ because of contract shit. Like, it got weird in Denver, but they could have basically just been like, look, it's kind of a wasted season. Let's shut it down. Make sure Javonte is definitely healthy for next year. They didn't do that. They kept riding him out. So 264 carries is nothing to sneeze at in modern NFL. And again, he was terribly inefficient because he wasn't 100% healthy. But you mentioned second year back. I love that. We see it quite often here. I'm looking forward to that with Breece Hall this year as well in New York. Of course, he's not a sleeper, but same kind of conversation there. So I like Javonte Williams, and hopefully he can bounce back in a big way. And I do hope Denver as a whole in that offense takes a step. So nice call there. And don't forget about Javonte Williams. All right. We have another couple thoughts here. Uncle Ted coming in. I'd like to see that. Good to hear back from you, Uncle Ted. Once again, shouts out to Ted Williams as the moniker there. So big up. Rico Dowdle, Zack Moss, Kimani Vidal, also nice. 6.3 yards. I like that a lot coming out with Notre Dame last year and Jawar Jordan there. So shouts out to Uncle Ted, always coming in as well. Looks like we got Jeff rebooting here on the other side, so we'll get him off just for a second. Let me retool everything. No big deal. Technology these days, it happens. Let me get into my next running back here. Once again, if you want to jump into our chat tonight, we're more than welcome to have you. So feel free to drop in and let us know who your rankings are and who we got. I'm going to let Jeff know we lost him. He's out. Get him back here in just a second. Happens when you're online. We don't have the big home studio anymore, for Razzball. So we'll have a big studio someday, maybe with Razzball headquarters. But until then, it's all good, and we'll make it happen best that we can. Jeff is back with us. No problem, my man. All right, let's get back into who I've got here. So again, we just talked about Zack Moss. We've talked about Jonathan Brooks. We just talked about Javonte Williams. Javonte Williams is right behind Jonathan Brooks at number 30. So far we've talked about the 28, 29, and 30 ECR ranked running backs via Razzball team. I'm going to talk about another rookie. I know that both of us love him. He might be our favorite rookie this year. Maybe not in Dynasty overall. I'm going to still lean Jonathan Brooks, assuming he gets healthy soon. But this year, I got to go with Trey Benson. And again, every time I say this, I don't want Bob, firing me or not giving me my Christmas bonus. So I have to throw out my obligatory shout out to James Conner. Who loves James Conner? Raise your hand. I do. Right? That's fine. But let's talk about the best running back in Arizona, and that's Trey Benson. This kid was a beast at Florida State. I do like James Conner a lot, but he hasn't played more than 13 games over the last 2 seasons. If there is an injury, it's not going to be Imari DeMarcado. That name always trips me up. Or Michael Carter. I do think it's immediately going to be Trey Benson. He's a workhorse. He's going to be able to catch the ball. He's going to be able to play on third downs. He's going to be able to block as well for Kyler Murray. I think that offense takes a giant leap forward again with Kyler Murray fully healthy. Of course, they also have Marvin Harrison there as well. So for me, it's again, opportunity, but Trey Benson, I think, is the most legit sleeper of the list we have today. People are going to draft Javonte Williams. He's a starter. People are going to draft Zack Moss. He's a starter. People are going to draft the 2 other guys we're going to talk about in a second. They're borderline starters. And Jonathan Brooks is the starter even with the injury once he comes back healthy. Trey Benson's definitely not the starter unless anything happens to James Conner coming up this summer here. But he is, in my opinion, the top handcuff of the rookies, absolutely, and therefore a true sleeper. So for me, Trey Benson's going to be on all my rosters. He's somebody that you can draft in the 11th, 12th round as you start getting into the handcuffs there. And whether you have James Conner or not on your team, I think you're going to be able to take that on. So this offense had the 5th ranked neutral script in rushing last year. So basically that means whether they were winning or losing the game, the Arizona Cardinals were still running the ball pretty consistently. Terrible coaching in my opinion. But as far as fantasy goes, that's great for Trey Benson. So I love that. Again, shouts out to James Conner. We're going to ride the wave as long as he is healthy. And I do think he's still a great mid-round draft pick. But if you have James Conner, you have to have Trey Benson. Whether you have James Conner or not, I recommend having Trey Benson as well. Jeff, I know you like him a lot too.
Yeah, huge fan. I like a lot of these rookies. They're not being drafted as high, but they're going to get just as much opportunity. So I think draft capital in Dynasty is more important, but in redraft, I think Trey Benson's a great sleeper. And honestly, maybe one of the better handcuffs too.
Yep, I totally agree. Trey Benson going as the 37th ranked running back in ECR right now on the Razzball team. So he's the lowest of all of the guys we're talking about this evening. But so far, again, we've talked about Javonte Williams, Zack Moss. We've also talked about Trey Benson and Jonathan Brooks as well. We each have another name. Jeff, before we get into that, again, I want to welcome in Uncle Ted, who's in the chat. Appreciate you. Bigging up Rico Dowdle. So I know Zeke has kind of the hype coming back to Dallas, but Tony Pollard's gone in Tennessee now. Rico Dowdle is another name we shouldn't forget about. I like that name drop there as well. And anybody else joining us right now on the YouTube channel, make sure you hit that subscribe, leave a rate and review. You can listen to us on the podcast as well. It's the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. And of course, follow Jeff and I both on X. That's Jefferson__21. My name is Sky Guasco, and everything Razzball is at Razzball NFL. Big things happening with the Razz Bowl as well.
Yes.
So keep tabs on all that on Twitter and X. And of course, all of our articles available, all of our spreadsheets, our stat sheets. Guys are going nuts behind the scenes, creating unique tools only to Razzball. So make sure that you catch up all these heading into draft season. That's football.razzball.com. All right, Jeff, who's the last name you'd like to talk about this evening?
Yeah, last guy. I mean, he's outside the top 20. So technically a sleeper by this exercise, but I just like him a lot this year, and that's Jaylen Warren out of Pittsburgh. I normally loathe the name Arthur Smith, but now I'm for him now. I think Jaylen Warren is going to be the guy in Pittsburgh this year. Najee Harris, his 5th-year option was not picked up. So that to me is really interesting storyline-wise to see what that looks like. And he's already publicly said he doesn't really know. He's unsure of his role, which is kind of odd because of the draft capital they have in him. But looking at Jaylen Warren, through 2 seasons, he averaging 5 yards a carry off 200+ attempts, which is really good. He is a definite playmaker. What I also like about him, he was the 2nd highest pass catcher with 63 catches last year in that offense, which wasn't very good. And last year, there was almost like a 60-40 split, Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. But Warren was the most efficient back. Now with Arthur Smith there, looking at Tyler Algier and Bijan, it was like a 53 to 47%, so almost like 50-50 roughly in favor of Bijan. I think we could see Jaylen Warren getting that kind of love because he kind of has that same playmaking ability as Bijan. And Bijan, I believe, had less receptions than Jaylen Warren a season ago. So I really like Jaylen Warren. I think he fits what Arthur Smith likes to do as a playmaker, and I think Najee Harris fits more as the Tyler Algier role last year. And the one of the nice stats that I did see about Jaylen I wanted to speak to is that he leads the NFL in missed tackles force since he came into the league.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't bring him down. And if he's going to get more touches, I want all of that. With that being said, his ADP is 93, which a lot of these guys are, so they're all kind of mixed in. But Najee Harris is in like the mid 70s, so you can wait 2 more rounds and get the better running back. So it's why I'm considering Jaylen Warren as a sleeper.
It's so wild, and it remains the case. I'm 100% behind this pick. I like Jaylen Warren a lot. I think I would say most analysts in fantasy are just passing on Najee and taking Jaylen Warren. I did just put out like veterans not to forget about, right? You and I talked about that last week, and that was Najee Harris is somebody I just wanted to throw out there. I was like, look, I know he's kind of quote unquote boring, but he stays healthy. He gets the workload in this offense. He's probably going to get better opportunities. They have 2 better running or quarterbacks than they've had since Ben Roethlisberger, and Roethlisberger wasn't very good at the last couple of years either. So Pittsburgh have not had a quality quarterback, in my opinion, for 5 seasons. I think they have 2. And in my opinion, Justin Fields, who will be the backup to start the seasons, better than Russ is at this point. So I think that team, and it always happens with Mike Tomlin, they'll get better as the season goes on. If Najee wears down or gets injured, Jaylen Warren's going to be that guy, especially in PPR. So great call there. My final guy is the OG of the OGs, but I got to give a shout out to my man, Raheem Mostert. It's long been discussed that his first 5 seasons didn't really count because he either was like red shirt in the NFL or he was injured right away and didn't play much of his NFL career. Then he started breaking out, and then he got signed and picked up by Miami. Of course, Mike McDaniel had him in San Francisco, brings him over to Miami, and he has a complete resurgence last year. He'll be 32 this year, which basically is like completely dust for modern day NFL running backs. But again, like wear on the tires matters. And he just doesn't have it like any other 32-year-old running back really ever has in the NFL. Last year, he stayed healthy, which he hadn't been able to do. Career highs across the board, including RB5 in PPR. He had more touchdowns last season, 21, than he did the entire rest of his career combined, which was 19 before last year. Now, Devin Achane is there. They're going to be amazing. They drafted some nice rookies. They have 5 wide receivers who are 4.3 speed. This offense is absolutely lethal as long as Tua can keep it together. But it goes behind Raheem Mostert as long as he's healthy. I think he's going to stay healthy. And I just kind of watched an interview of him recently. He totally changed how he took care of his body over the last 2 or 3 years versus the first few years in the NFL when he was getting injured. So I know he's older based on running backs, but I think he's more aware of that. And they are going to mix it up because they can. But Achane had like 30% of the snaps last year in a handful of games. Didn't matter. Raheem Mostert can take any of these fly sweeps for 1 carry and bust 80 yards still arguably the fastest running back in the NFL. Yeah. And both these guys are going to be absolutely dynamite. So don't forget about Raheem Mostert. Right now, he's number 25 in Razzball ECR, which is the highest of the guys we're talking about. But oddly enough, again, he's the starter and he's a sleeper because he's where he's getting drafted. So go ahead and take Achane as a top, second round pick. I'm into that, but I'm definitely grabbing him if I get Achane early, and I probably won't get Achane that early because I want other guys there. I'm going to take Raheem Mostert in the 5th, 6th round instead and ride the wave. I think it'll work out. So Raheem Mostert is just another guy I don't want everybody to forget about. Oddly enough, he's the starter day 1, but he's also a sleeper. While he's healthy, I still think he's a top 10 running back in fantasy and the NFL, especially on this potent offense. Any love for my man, Raheem Mostert, Jeff?
Yeah, no, absolutely. With the value, like that's what a lot of sleeper is about, the value. It's not where they're ranked, it's where you get him at the price. And he meets that definition and then some with the offense that he's in. If he's going to get double-digit touchdowns and you're getting him that late, that could be a league winner.
Excellent. Love it. Fire up the Dolphins, man. I mean, they got 5 wide receivers you could have, Tua's a fun second quarterback, and then you got all these running backs as well. Like, they are a Madden team in real life, which is super, super fun. All right, to break it down one more time here to get into the rest of our sleepers. And again, if anybody wants to fire a quick comment to let us know who your sleepers are, anybody, you feel free to drop in the next 2 minutes before we head out of here. But tonight's sleepers, Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos sitting at 30 in ECR for Razzball. Zack Moss now with the Bengals at 28. Jaylen Warren right behind Najee Harris, or is he, at 26. Raheem Mostert, the starter, still a sleeper, sitting at 25. Jonathan Brooks coming off the injury, but all the opportunity there in Carolina at 29. And Trey Benson, who is the top running back for Jeff and I of this rookie class in this year's opportunity. But again, shouts out to my man, James Conner. Jeff, before we get out of here, any other honorable mentions, anything else you want to mention here for sleepers? When are you looking to start drafting quote unquote sleepers? Obviously, again, these guys are not your first, second, maybe even your third running back. But for me, they're 4, 5, 6. They're the last 5 picks of a draft. You start picking a bunch of kind of cherry picked, like, if it happens, this will be great, blah, blah, blah. I always circle back when I do this episode. I mention it every single season because it's worth noting. I drafted Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson as my handcuff for the New Orleans Saints in 2017. Just for shits, because both of them were old. Both of them kind of had some injuries piling up. I was like, what the hell? Let me just grab this kid out of Tennessee. He was an Alabama product as well. He just didn't get playing time, so he went to Tennessee. Alvin Kamara looks pretty cool. He likes airheads and dreadlocks. I'm into it. I picked him in the 15th round, Jeff. Alvin Kamara becomes Alvin Kamara that season with Mark Ingram because Adrian Peterson didn't pan out. The rest is history, right? So some of these guys can absolutely be that dog next year. And if you're in a keeper league, not Dynasty, but if you're in a keeper league, Trey Benson's, Jonathan Brooks, those type of guys are falling and falling and falling. They might be your keeper in the 12th round of next year with that opportunity. So keep an eye. Anybody jumping off the page, Jeff, or what's your strategy for drafting running back sleepers?
Yeah, so it just depends on like your board and the draft. I like guys like kind of where they're going. We're talking about between like round 8 to like 10, 11. I think that's where you win your draft. Is getting some of these sleeper quote unquote and starters that are going to be putting up starter numbers a few weeks into the season, but aren't starting right away from you. One guy that comes to mind to me when I took Doug Martin, Tampa Bay. I forget what year that was, but I won a league because of him. So it's finding these kind of running backs later in the draft, but not too late, but they're your third, fourth running back, but could end up being your RB2. So that's when I really like to focus on a lot of these players. I want to give a shout out to Styles for our mock draft for the Razzball. That was a lot of fun with some of these pros that I was alongside with. Learned a lot. I tried to go zero RB strategy, and it did not work very well. So that's why I love doing mocks. I was stuck with Connor and Tajee Spears, who I like, and then Zeke and Dowdle. So I was like, those are my backs, like in a Razzball. Best ball is like, that's not too good. So, you learn some things. So that's why do the mocks, get prepared, because there's so many different strategies. So one may work one time, it may not work another one, a different format. So take advantage of that and check out that mock draft. It's a lot of fun.
Love it. And big up the mock draft Mondays. We'll be back with you on Mondays. I'm switching up the cast. We're going around the horn. Jeff and I did one. Bob and I are doing one. Looks like Styles will be with us on Monday. So we got mock drafts coming up here on Razzball YouTube channel every single week. Once again, you can catch everything Razzball at Razzball NFL on X. You can find us on the podcast at Fantasy Football, Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, anywhere you listen to your audio. And then, of course, everything on the YouTube channel, you can hit right here, subscribe, hit the bell. And we're with you all summer long, dropping episodes every single night, coming into kickoff. And we also got you every single Sunday morning for the Sunday Live Start Sit Show, kicking off 2 hours before your local kickoff time. Very excited for that. And again, Razzball kicking off all of our articles and great unique tools to help you with drafting, help you with analysis, help you with your research, help you with everything you need to know with pre-season draft season happening for Razzball, available at football.razzball.com. For my man, Jeff, I am your host, Sky. We are going to check it out for tonight, but we'll be back on Monday, and we'll be back next Thursday for another round of our fun sleepers, bust, breakouts, and our must-have and our do-not draft players. We'll catch you next time on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. Everyone have a wonderful evening. We are out of here.